Hello friends, welcome to my channel SushantChessWise. Today onwards we are starting with the series on the King's Indian defense, which starts with the move 1d4. Last time we discussed about all the Indian defenses. Now we are taking it deeper into one particular line. As I said, King's Indian is a universal way we can use this setup against any of the white setups, whichever move white starts with other than the move e4. So let's get started quickly. Today we will discuss the various options that white has against the King's Indian defense. Basically the purpose of this lesson is to enable the player to understand how much depth he will have to go into to use this opening. Generally I suggest players of around 1700 or so to get into any of the Indian defenses, which is basic part of NEC advanced kind of opening preparation, I would say. So they should start looking at any d4 and f6 opening basically. So let's get started quickly. d4 and f6, c4 g6, and we discussed last time that with nc3 bg7 black goes in for the King's Indian setup, and mainly white plays the move e4. Today we are only discussing about e4. After e4, black mainly plays d6, but Bobby Fischer used to play castle also, and after e5 go ne8, and then see immediately next move attack with the pawn with d6 and maybe c5 in some cases this way. But more common is the move d6, it stops e5. So black goes d6. Of course, e5 is blunder here because takes and qd1, nd1, and you can see it's bad position. Knight can be played to g4. e5 is coming under fire. So black is clearly better here. Even the move knight e4 looks very good. So let's begin with one of the main lines, which is the move nf3, most natural developing move and the beginning of the classical setup. Of course, black goes castle and white here plays bishop e2, and today our main concern is to understand whether black can play the move e5 immediately here to attack the center. c5 would take us to Benoni kind of positions, because after c5 white can do the move d5. So it can be like modern Benoni after black plays e6. So can black play e5? That is our main thing. So the answer is yes, but we need to look at some detailed analysis to understand why this e5 pawn cannot be taken. See, right now there are two attacks and you can see only one support. So what happens after d? Let's see. D takes e5, d takes e5, and there are two ways. Firstly, if queen takes d8 straight away, which is bit better, we will come to it soon. Let us look at knight e5 first, outright mistake, qd1 first, sending the bishop back because knight takes, then e4 was hanging. So now comes c, still knight e4, nf7 blunder because of nc3 winning. So knight e4, be5, and if bh6, immediately black has the good move bb2. There was no need to move the rook because if f8 is taken now, then a1 will be taken. So rook b1 forced and black just retires back with bg7. After bg7, kg7, black won this game. Black is threatening c, bishop f5 first of all, rook e8, and of course knight can join c6. So black is of course a pawn up and in a winning position. So way better is the move qd8, rd8, and here if white wants to play like the proper exchange variation, then he considers the move bg5, which we will discuss in our upcoming lessons in detail. So today's concern is the move knight e5 only. After knight e5, see the rook on d8 hangs here. So ne4, if white tries nf7 tactic here, see, it's going to backfire because bishop c3 check. We will take the knight on c3 with check, bc, and king takes f7. Black is just a piece up and winning. So after knight e4, of course, knight e4, be5, and now white has the better looking move bg5. Many feel white is getting the bishop pair, see, because after the move rook e8, nf6 check, forced to take, bishop takes. But see, black has slight lead in development, we can say. The white king is in the center, main reason is that. And after bishop f5, see, we are threatening bd3, the bishop is eyeing the d3 square, and after rook d1 and d7, trying to push this bishop away to bd4, we can do c5 this way. and to bc3, knight c5, good move. One idea is to take this knight to a4, and if b3, it is a blunder, there comes nd3 check. Matter settle here, king can't go to d2 because just see nf2 is a fork. After king f1, can you find the winning move? It's nf4. The e2 bishop is really strapped off place. It is not having any good place because after bf3 there is bd3 check. We'll come to that. If re1, then knight takes, rook takes bd3 and the whole rook is lost. After bf3, as I mentioned, bd3 check, king g1 and the stunning simple move be2, game over. If bishop takes e2, then knight e2 check and you see the bishop on c3 falls. So re1 forced, and after re1 to bf3 check, gf, and once again an e2 check. The hanging bishop makes it compulsory to take on e2, and after re2, black is exchange up, better king position, and of course winning. a2 is weak, f2 is weak, this rook will join from the d file, so of course black is winning. This is the point about the capture on e5. Why I am showing you detailed analysis is many players, those who want to take up this opening, must have the idea that how much basic knowledge they need to have. And this is today pure basics I am telling you. These are like ABCD of this opening. So this much we will have to remember, and our other lessons will be really deep. So I will try to make lessons in a way that every variation is covered in a basic way, and then we follow up with some game study or typical variations which will enable us to play this opening confidently. So let's go to the main line here. After e5, white does castle, and now there are two options. One is the very sharp nc6, bit less popular these days. White goes d5, ne7, and see, black wants to move this knight usually to g4 and play f5, break the base of the pawn chain. White wants c5, creating a base on d6. So the whole play relies on, see, there are three knight moves here, knight e1, knight d2, these are some main moves. b4, very popular here, called the bayonet attack, and also there are some other side moves. nh4 is not that good over here. Okay, so ne1, nd7, he stops c5 and aims for f5. As I mentioned, c5 is well guarded. So b3, f5, f3, f4, pf2, g5. A very sharp and intense struggle will ensue from here. White has b4, c5, knight b5 and pressurizes d6. Rook tries to invade the 7th rank. Look at black. Black wants ng6, nf6, h5, g4, g3, and then finally this queen joins from g5 or h4. So there is a typical queenside play versus kingside attack, which at lower level will definitely favor black, I feel. Okay, so but we have to know decent amount of theory, the ideas, grasp the situation very well. We will cover that to some extent, but I find what we can say lighter approach for black is the move na6 here, which is not the main line but favored or played by Kasparov also. Black intends to take this knight to c5. At some point there will be d4, rook e8, lot of pressure on this e4 pawn. So we will investigate this line as well. So I want to create such opening lessons where it is possible for any player, basically players of different levels, to able to use it. So let's move on from classical now and explore other lines. We need to know about them as well. So the next main happens to be the move f3, so called the Samish variation, typical play like the Yugoslav attack in the Sicilian dragon. So see, black goes castle, b3 and c6, so called the Pano-Samish. After qd2, a6, h4, h5, ne2, rook b8, black intends e5. Black has two main ideas, one b5 and other e5. Attack this center, very sharp play emerges. White has moves here, nc1, long castle. Okay, the theory just begins here, and there are lot of alternatives to h4, h5 was there, ne2 can be delayed. Okay, so there are a lot of lines there. So this is also a very typical sharp King's Indian play, very interesting one. We will cover this as well. Next, another sharp line is the 4 pawns attack. After castle nf3, white soon wants, see, the deadly move e5. Bishops will come to d3 and e3, and they will try to sweep away the black pieces from the center. The line we are going to investigate is the move na6. Very interesting na6. When after be2, we will look at the move e5. Black often plays e5 to distract this pawn on d4 so that the knight gets placed on c5. There will be very interesting analysis. It's very risky to take on e5 for white. His whole structure will be ruined. We will cover all this very soon. Next, there are two more very important lines. One is the move h3 here. Slow one. After castle, white either plays nf3. Simple, classical, but without allowing bg4 and all. Slow way. Otherwise, the more aggressive bg5. Here too we can consider the move na6, very interesting one. Have ideas of c5, c6 and c7, all these different plans. And maybe e5 at some point. Now e5 is not good. This is also very interesting. And finally, the most dreaded fianchetto systems, white plays g3, castle, bg2, play is very slow. Here too we will investigate the line na6. These na6 ideas were a bit new when I was playing. Still, it has a lot of steam. I think we can investigate these lines, and at least I will show you some ideas which will be easier for 17, 1800 and very good for around 2000 level players as well. See, the benefit of mainstream openings is against lower players we can get easily better positions. Against higher we are better equipped. But my main purpose of making this lesson was to make you realize how much theoretical input or time we will have to devote to be able to play this opening. So that was my main purpose. Before you enter an Indian defense, I think basic idea is very important. Whether you like these positions, that is another factor. So this will help you decide it to some extent. Of course, we can go through my other lessons and make up your mind. I hope you will like this lesson. Definitely let me know in the comments below. Thanks for your time.